We're going to take some things out of order. First of all, we're going to take item number 3 that's on the calendar, which is House Bill 1640 by Leader Lamberth. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized. You have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And sorry, I know we have 2 amendments on this, and I was discussing the untimely filed amendment with the sponsor of that amendment. So, Mr. Chairman, I have amendment code 013322 that makes the bill.
There's a motion on amendment and a second on amendment 01332. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The amendment's on the bill. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I know that we have some testimony today that will really describe much better than anything that I could say why this bill is needed. But just today in the news on Channel 5, this is an article by Emily West. There's a man by the name of Jason Turner who has a lengthy history of arrest over the last 16 years. Assault, a number of violent offenses against other people. He's threatened to kill people several times. This person gets turned out over and over and over again back onto our streets to wreak absolute mayhem. And you've got half this room full of young people that go to Belmont University because one of their classmates and the parents of Jillian Ludwig are here today. And this is named Jillian's Law, after a young lady who lost her life for no reason whatsoever other than the fact that we didn't have a bill like this on the books already. Because people like what I just described, and again, I'll say his name, Mr. Jason Turner here, need help. But they need to also be off of our streets. They do not need to have a deadly weapon of any kind. They do not need to be out and about. They unfortunately don't need to be in jail because they have mental health and developmental disabilities. But we as a state have not had the wherewithal or, quite frankly, the will to say that we are going to make sure that these folks are committed. So this amendment ensures that if they are charged with a crime that is a misdemeanor or above, I had some questions about that after the subcommittee about, what about speeding tickets and jaywalking or something of low level, littering. Obviously, we're not trying to address issues like that, but an A misdemeanor or above, we're talking about domestic assault, simple assault, DUI, or all the way up to felony murder, any of those type of offenses. If someone is facing an offense of that nature, and they're evaluated by doctors, and their lawyer and addresses it to the court, and the state addresses the court, and the judge decides that that person is not competent to assist in their defense, then they will be committed. As part of that committal process, that means they will lose their right to possess or purchase a firearm. Mr. Chairman, in this amendment, specifically I believe in sections 2, 4, 7, and 9, we reference the way that a person could regain those rights. We've had many times conversations in this committee about just because someone may lose a right because they're convicted of a felony or because they're mentally committed or anything else, that's a civil liberty that they have. We want to make sure to have a pathway back to full rights for those folks, and those sections do just that. It also has a rebuttable presumption in this where just because someone is going to be committed, there could be other factors that a judge needs to look at where, yes, the default is that they will be committed, and that would have prevented tragedies like what you'll hear about today, but the judge can still hear evidence where it is a rebuttable presumption. And if there is some reason why someone should not be committed, then they will not do so. The last thing that this amendment adds in, and this is critical, it comes from the District Attorney General's conference. When someone is committed, that can be inpatient, it can be outpatient, it can have, depending upon their needs, a variety. It can look like a lot of different things. But the judge has got to have review over that for the entirety of that person's life, really. If they're not competent to assist in their defense, that means they're literally either from developmental disability or mental health issues. They've devolved to the point where they can't even talk to their lawyer about their case. The judge needs to keep up with that person for the rest of their lives or until they regain competence. And so this judicial review part of it is extremely important, and we really didn't have that in there before. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I know that we have some testimony today, and Chairman Williams will be handling that aspect of it. He has been we've been evenly yoked on this bill. He's not just a co-sponsor of this bill, but I wish we could put names side by side as just sponsors of the bill because he's done a phenomenal job of helping champion this effort. And Mr. Chairman, if he has some folks that would love to address the committee whenever you would like them to.
Okay, without objection, then we'll go out of session here for a moment, and Chairman Williams, you can introduce the guests.
Thank you, Chairman and members. Wish I I wish I was not here under these circumstances, but the world got really small for me. A few months ago, I had the opportunity through a mutual relationship to meet the people that are going to testify today. Matt and Julian Ludwig, or Matt and Jessica Ludwig, are the parents of Julian Ludwig. As Leader Lamberth said, this bill is named after. They are in the room with us today, as well as her roommate, Livia Mihalovich, and Eddie Winey, one of her friends. They've asked to testify today for about 3 minutes. I want to take a moment just to tell you a little bit about Jillian so that we don't take all the parents' time as it relates to who she was. The goal with this bill is not only to extend the legacy that is Jillian Ludwig and her love for the arts through a foundation, but it's also an opportunity for this body to opine as it relates to what we can do to make sure that no Tennessean has to face the same thing that they face on a daily basis. It's a very difficult walk that they have. As many of you know, I have a daughter at Belmont University as well. She's a freshman there, and the pain is pretty much unimaginable. And so, for your indulgence, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Jillian and then ask them to come up and share with them your story. Jillian was a rising star. She was so accomplished and driven and had worked so hard to get to where she was at Belmont, just riding the crest of what had certainly been a very successful and promising collegiate experience and a subsequent career in the music industry. At age 17, she started her own project called Playing It Forward, where she would perform and raise funds to donate back to those in need with musical community that she so loved. Jillian became a music teacher herself at Lake House Music Academy, where she had studied, and upon high school graduation, she went on to study music business at Belmont University in Nashville. She had dreams, and those dreams were cut short in November of last year. She had dreams of having a career in the music industry and as a recording artist. I've asked, today we have with her, Matt and Jessica Ludwig, if you guys will go ahead and come forward, and then Olivia Mihalovich and those. And so, with your indulgence, Chairman and members, they'd like to share a little bit about their story. Thank you.
Please make sure the red light's on your microphone so we can all hear. And for the record, please state your name.
Hello, my name is Jessica Ludwig. My voice breaks when I get emotional, I'm sorry. This is a picture of my daughter, Jillian Ray Ludwig. Jillian was many things to many people. To her father and I, she was our only beloved daughter. She was a big sister to her two younger brothers, a role model, a caretaker. She was also a niece, a granddaughter, a cousin, a girlfriend, a fellow student, a bandmate, a coworker, a friend. Jillian was all about peace and love. She was generous, giving, courteous, respectful, intelligent, creative, kind. Jillian touched so many people in her way too short 18 years that there was a 4-hour wait that stretched around blocks to get into the funeral home for her visitation. Her loss is not only tragic and unthinkable, it has utterly wrecked and shattered the hearts of hundreds of lives. I know I will never recover, and I will shoulder the immense grief and pain I feel over her loss for the rest of my life. It is a pain I know many of you have never felt, but let me assure you, there is nothing worse than losing a child. It leaves a giant hole in your heart that can never be filled. Jillian was beautiful on the inside and out. She graduated high school with a 4.1 GPA, following an advanced course load of honors courses throughout all 4 years. She worked 2 jobs, volunteered her time with her own service project to give back to underprivileged communities. She played 6 instruments and was a member of 3 rock bands and of our choir at church. Her passion in life was music, which was what brought her to Belmont. She had worked so hard to get there, and she was so excited for her super promising future. She was happy and loving her new college life, classes, and friends. She was writing original music until it was all abruptly ripped out from under her while she was in the prime of her life. After only a few short months, on November 7th, she was senselessly and violently gunned down by a stray bullet in a community park just 2 blocks from her campus. while she was out for a jog in her quest to live a healthy lifestyle on a sunny day at 2:30 in the afternoon. The man that took Jillian's life that day had a long history of violence and had been arrested many times. Among other crimes, he had recently shot at a mother and her 2 young children and had previously shot a teenager in the chest. Anyone with a sound mind and reason would assume this man should have been in prison or committed to a mental facility. He should not, given these prior felony shooting charges, have been simply dismissed and freely released back on the streets, ready to claim his next victim. And yet that's exactly what happened. Predictable in this scenario is an understatement. The fact that this man was deemed mentally incompetent for his prior shooting crime that year, a finding which is questionable at best, yet that he was also determined not to be a threat to himself or others, was an egregious and outrageous error. Given all of his prior crimes, how on earth could the doctors who evaluated him deem him not a threat to society? It's incomprehensible and defies all logic and common sense. Shame on them for being so reckless. DA General Funk even predicted this in a news interview on October 26th, when he stated, "We know there will be another victim in the next few weeks." Jillian was shot just 12 days later. It is frankly shocking that we're even here fighting to pass this law to begin with. A loophole like this should never have existed in the first place. I know this legislator had the opportunity to pass mental health legislation during a special session in August, but it did not get through the Senate. Change at that point would have prevented Jillian's murder. It's high time to make this change and protect the innocent civilians of Tennessee. It's heartbreaking that it took someone losing her life, my poor, beautiful Jillian, to restart this conversation. There is no more time to waste. Isn't the primary duty of government to protect its citizens? So please make the right choice today. The choice is right over wrong, protection over danger and disorder, preventable violence. To me, it seems there's no other choice here. But if your choice is to vote now, I'd really like to know why. Please tell me how my daughter's life was expendable. If it's about money, find money in the budget. How much is a human life worth? If it's something else, please explain why you could be prioritizing violent criminals over protecting innocent civilians. I'm sure your constituents will be happy to know your stance before the next election. It is time to hold criminals accountable for their crimes. If they are mentally incapable of standing trial, they must get the help that they need in a mental facility until they have been reformed enough to stand trial. It's simple, and it's the better option for everybody. The soft-on-crime approach is ruining America's cities. The city of Nashville houses major universities where tens of thousands of students flock to every year for their education. It's also a popular tourist destination. These students and these tourists need to be safe here, along with your residents. Otherwise, they won't come. Jillian's tragedy is quite frankly a stain on this city and the state of Tennessee. We received hundreds of letters from around the country asking why and how this could have possibly happened. People are shocked and horrified. It's time to make change for my girl, and the others will come behind her if you don't close this dangerous loophole. I'd like to finish with a shout out to my beautiful, extraordinary girl, who I believe is giving me the strength to speak to you today. Jillian, I miss you dearly, and you will not ever be forgotten. I can promise you that. Thank you for your time, and thank you to Leader Lamberth for sponsoring this important bill, and to Representative Ryan Williams for his support and for inviting us here today.
I'm Eddie Winey. I'm from New York. I'm a Belmont student. I want to start by saying thank you to Jess and Matt for inviting me to come speak about Jillian's Law. My name is Eddie Winey, and I'm a freshman at Belmont and one of Jill's good friends. Jillian Ludwig was the type of person who would light up a room from just her presence, a quality that not a lot of people have. She was intelligent, kind, and extremely dedicated. Now Jill lies 6 feet underground due to the laws, or lack thereof, put in place by the state of Tennessee. Jill laid on the ground bleeding out for around an hour before anyone found her. The ICCMA recommends that police departments should assign 60% of officers to patrol, yet Nashville Metro only has an average of 36%, according to the CRB. At the time Jill was murdered, Shaquille Taylor had a warrant out for his arrest. Just 5 days ago, Chief John Drake stated that there's a shortage of 170 officers in the Metro Police in Nashville. Yet, a study done by Judge Melissa Blackburn's office shows that during an 18-month period, 182 people were deemed incompetent to stand trial and released back into our neighborhoods in Nashville. The MNPD doesn't have the manpower to be watching these people. I'm not blaming the police. Even Chief John Drake stated, we're not trying to arrest our way out of situations, out of problems. We actually want to help people. So let's help these people. This law would be a step forward into giving these criminals a place to get better, beds where they can actually get the help they need, instead of being let back into our community to hurt themselves or more people. It also adds $1.2 million into funding for these people to have a place to get help. Tennessee has a multi-billion-dollar budget. It's pennies that would prevent countless deaths to innocent, everyday working people like you or me. This past Saturday, Livia and I held an event where Belmont students could write and sign letters to the Criminal Justice Committee in support of House Bill 1640, with the goal of 50 people to come take the time to walk all the way off campus to come write letters. With only half a day of being able to promote before the event, we hit 3 times our goal, with almost 150 people showing up to sign and write letters. We also sold out of all of our t-shirts within the first 30 minutes. I am not just here speaking on behalf of my opinions, but thousands of other students and citizens who believe that House Bill 1640, Jillian's Law, would be a step towards a safer community. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Livia Mihalovich. I'm a freshman at Belmont. I'm from Pennsylvania and Jillian from New Jersey. We both worked very hard during high school to get the opportunity to have many places to attend college, but we both chose to come to Nashville. I now question my choice. Jill was my roommate. From the moment we met, we were instantly best friends. We felt like we knew each other forever. Both of us were far from home and our families for the first time. We put so much time into making Nashville feel like our home away from home. But Jill never got to go home. Her life was taken from her after just a short 3 months here. She was 18. This legislation is an extremely important change, not only to me, but to all my classmates, and it should be important to everyone in this room. We shouldn't have to live in fear, wondering what other violent criminals are walking around our neighborhoods or just outside of our college campus. I chose to come to Nashville as a student, and after college, I will likely move on. But you all will continue to live here. Nashville is your city, Tennessee is your state, and it is literally your job to keep it as safe as it can be and to bring justice to situations like Jill's. Maybe your children or grandchildren will grow up here, or even go to school at Belmont. Imagine if what happened to Jill happened to your daughter, your granddaughter, your friend. Can you? Most of you can't. It's unimaginable. Jill was doing nothing wrong when she was killed, in the middle of the afternoon, right after attending class. It's been made painfully obvious that tragedy like this can happen to anyone, anytime. So wouldn't you want to do everything you could to ensure the safety of your families and communities? I have walked beside Jill's parents, her family, her friends, and loved ones in their suffering. Their family and entire community has been torn apart. Students at Belmont have become fearful of the area. Some even left to return home, all because of the flaw in this legislation. It's not fair that the loss of Jillian's life is the motivation for this change, a change that most would agree is common sense. How is it that a decision was made to free a violent criminal without any consequences? Who is responsible for Jillian's death? Jill was a good person. Her goodness was a gift to everyone who knew her and even those who didn't. Her death could have and should have been prevented. I beg that you agree with us that violent individuals deemed mentally incompetent should be required to be placed where they will get the help they need. By closing this loophole, they will be removed from being a danger to themselves and society, and they will have the opportunity to be rehabilitated. If you happen to not agree with this new legislation today, I ask you to work with us. Don't just say no. Please work with us so that we can all be protected from repeat violent offenders. Justice for Jillian now lies in your hands. Do not fail the students, the community, or your own children. And please do not fail Jill again. Thank you.
Matt Ludwig. Good afternoon. After making the leap to college 900 miles from home and some initial apprehension about moving to another region of the country, It took our daughter Jillian all of about 2 weeks to realize she was already in love with Nashville. The music scene, the friendly people, the incredible Tennessee nature nearby. She was ready to settle in and embrace it all. But only 3 months in, Tennessee law failed her. A repeat violent criminal was free to commit another crime, this time taking Jill's life. Her shooter has gotten many inexcusable second chances. Jill didn't get any. He remains unaccountable for his many crimes, and Jill is dead. The Ludwig family may not be a part of your constituency, but we care about the safety and well-being of those who are, in a place our daughter was excitedly embracing as her own. It's time for this legislature to care now too, and advance this common sense bill that will save lives. We never thought in a million years that this tragedy could strike our daughter. And while other violent, dangerous criminals deemed incompetent to stand trial, but not committable, are on the streets, it could happen to anyone. Please take action. The safety of your constituency and that of all who love Tennessee demand it. We owe it to our daughter to advocate for this reform, and you owe it to Tennessee to enact it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your courage. I'm so sorry for the pain in your heart, and may God grant you peace that lasts. Any questions for these folks? Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank y'all for testifying today. And to the committee, I mean, these folks are hurting and hurting bad, and they're just asking us to help. And I know nobody gets to tell any of you guys how to grieve. You know, it's going to express itself in lots of different ways. I started this as a policy conversation. It's still that. For y'all, it's way more than that. It's about Jillian. It's about making sure that there's no other Jillians out there. And you all did a very, very good job today of articulating exactly why this is needed. I can't imagine how both the students at Belmont have the strength to be able to come down here and watch a policy debate over changing Tennessee law when you're hurting so badly. And I know that you're scared. I know that it worries you. I've heard from you. I've read your emails and your letters. We hear you. That's why this bill's here. We want you to be safe. And to you guys, like Representative Williams, like Chairman Williams, I'm a parent as well. Many of us are, and for those that aren't up here, I mean, we all have family. I just can't imagine the strength it takes for you guys to get out of bed every day and to come down here and to testify. Thank you. Yeah, and I know I've prepped you. There'll likely be questions and policy issues and amendments and everything else, and that's just part of the process. But what we're doing as part of this is trying to do everything that you've asked us to do, which is to keep other people safe. And it just thanks for being here. It means something that you are. Thank you.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. And special thanks to the parents, Jillian's parents, and of course to her roommate and all of her friends and supporters who are here today. I'm a girl dad, so I've got some sense of what it was like to have Jillian. Unfortunately, you don't have her, and I can't empathize with you on that, but I can certainly sympathize with you on what it's probably like. To be able to fight through that grief and to come down and to fight with all you've got to make sure that the law is changed in a way to prevent the same things from happening under similar circumstances to other daughters and roommates and sisters. And that's a noble thing that you do. And to be able to plow through it with the grace that you have, I admire that. And I want to express my appreciation to the young folks for the eloquence that you've displayed and the way that you've shared with us. And we're going to make this happen. And thank you to the sponsor for bringing this legislation. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll go back into session. Any questions of the sponsor from the committee? Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I want to go back and make sure that in the interest of absolutely everyone's safety, this is something that is important and necessary, but also I just want to make sure that we are addressing the difference of someone with an intellectual disability and that we have placements for these folks. Because, again, I am still hearing that there is a lack of placement for individuals that have the intellectual disability because mental health care is, for the mentally ill is not appropriate for those types of individuals. And I know there can be Olmstead violations if we don't have those places. And my concern is with outpatient, I don't believe those outpatient facilities exist. And so I want to make sure that we do everything we can possibly do to have facilities in place for folks to go in order to be able to enact this piece of legislation.
Leader Lamberth.
So there are lots of reasons that folks could vote no on this bill. My hope is that you can find a way to vote yes on this bill and that all of us would support it. But the issues that you have mentioned are certainly something that finance will be taking up. There's actually a $2.1 million fiscal note on this that will be for additional beds. I don't pass empty bills down here. We don't pass bills that deal with this level of gravity without applying funding to it to ensure that those beds are there. So this will be a continuing conversation. I've said for years that if you have a bill in the Criminal Justice Committee and it doesn't have a fiscal note, you're probably not accomplishing much. So this one does have a fiscal note. It is a fiscal note that in a $52.6 billion budget, I think that's what the state budget is this year if you look on the page. Surely to God we can find a couple of $1 million to help save folks like Jillian.
I would absolutely hope so. And that is why I want to continually bring this up to ensure that it happens. I have not voted no on this, and I haven't intended to vote no on this, but I want to make sure that when we put something in place, we have the facilities available so that we can act immediately.
Chairman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move previous question.
I had a question too. Can I
I'll
get
withdraw.
you to back up on that? Thank you. Just for the record, you and I, Leader, have discussed this before. On the latest Supreme Court decision in Bruin puts a pretty high standard. And I would like you to address that, please, if you would.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and even in the historical precedent of this country, quite frankly, going back thousands of years, all societies, including ours, even before the Constitution, the Second Amendment was written, recognize that there are individuals that are criminally insane, that have either developmental disabilities or mental health issues or a combination thereof, that they need to be committed. And when those folks are committed, they do have a certain amount of truncated rights that are associated with that because they have been deemed, after full due process and having attorneys represent them and in open court with medical doctors' testimony, to literally lose a certain amount of the rights that they had. To my knowledge, that has been upheld by the courts over and over again, but only when that high standard is met and only with that historical precedent as in Bruin as it articulates in there. But societies throughout all of human history have realized that unfortunately there are some citizens within their society who just struggle with some demons that the rest of us wouldn't understand. But we can't just let those folks wander the street, and we certainly can't let them have access to deadly weapons of any kind. I know that there may be some other bills this year that address that, and quite frankly, I support that beyond just firearms. These statutes deal mainly with commitment processes and then not having access to firearms after that commitment because that's what comes with it. But quite frankly, I'm fine if we go beyond that in other bills in this session because many of these folks are a danger whether they have a firearm or a vehicle or just about anything. They're a danger to themselves and others, and it's a real shame. I will say that the goal of this bill is not to truncate anyone's rights back. It is to get them committed off the street and get them the help that they need. That's why I entered into this bill. That's the reason in speaking with Jillian's parents and others, that's our goal here, is that it's not to just lock these folks up and throw away the key, but you just can't have them out wandering the streets. And so, Mr. Chairman, I hope that answers your question, but we are trying to not only abide by the Bruin standard, but also recognize that historically there have always been individuals within our society who are a danger to themselves or others based on their just mental makeup.
Yeah. Thank you. And Bruin, of course, what the court ruled is that you viewed it as the way things were in 1791, and they didn't focus on the weapon, they focused on the person, and they locked the person up. And so the institutionalized part of it, I think, is meets the bar. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I might indulge for just a moment, a late amendment that I offered to this bill because it so hurt my heart, and my heart goes out to you all. The amendment that I proposed, and it was late getting in. We had some discussions with safety about it just today. The amendment would have included every deadly weapon in Tennessee Code. It would also remove the right to operate a motor vehicle in those conditions. And it would raise those crimes from misdemeanors to felonies. I personally think that we should make this broader, that there's a way to make an impact that really matters and not focus on just one thing, focused on that, as the chairman as you just said, that evil intent of that person. So I felt just obligated. You all know I voted no last time, and you needed to hear that from me. And I love you. My heart goes out to you, I promise. Just know that my holdout on this has been to make this better and broader, because I do think we need to make it better and broader. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we need to vote on, go ahead, Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I know that was a late filed amendment, and it may not be considered today by the committee necessarily, but I will say that I join Representative Fritz. I mean, it is a good idea. We've looked at some other bills that potentially would fit on. I think that's a healthy conversation for us all to have as we are evaluating, again, dealing with the person, not just whatever they may be utilizing at that time. We know that many of these folks use firearms to horrible, horrible ends, but they also can be dangerous with other deadly weapons as well, or vehicles. And so I know that's something, and I appreciate the representative bringing that up. I know it may not fit directly on this bill. My hope is we can push this bill through as amended with 13322, and then we're early in the session. I hope we will continue that conversation, because it's all about public safety, period. I mean, that's what the goal is to get these folks help, and until which time they are safe for themselves or others. I mean, I'm fine truncating back, especially a lot of privileges, like driving or something else, while they are getting the help they need. So I know it may not fit directly on this bill, but I join the representative in working in that effort to try to find a way to address those issues too.
Okay, legal's telling me that the change that we wanted on that one particular line was more than just a small technical change, and we'd have to do that at another time. We very well can hook this amendment on in calendar and rules, since that's where it goes after this. I'm sorry, it goes to finance. We can put it on finance. Okay, any other questions? Question been called on the bill and seconded by Chairman Howe. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. It goes on to Finance Committee.